Welcome, everyone, to our 22nd Salon of the Maternal Gift Economy Breaking Through series, hosted by Genevieve Vaughan, who's with us today, and the International Feminists for the Gift Economy. I'm Letitia Lacen, your moderator. Today, we're very excited to have Darcia Narvaez returning, and Kathy Jones, who is calling in from the UK. Our first speaker is Darcia Narvaez. We are really happy to have Darcia back. She was one of our original speakers at the mini conference we had in November. And it looks like we have almost come full circle to celebrating a full year of salons with you. She was also with us in May at Salon number 13. So you can go back on our website, and if you haven't seen that salon and weren't able to be with us, you can go back and see that. So let me find Darcia. Darcia is a professor emerita of psychology at University of Notre Dame. She researches moral development and human flourishing from an interdisciplinary perspective, integrating anthropology, neuroscience, clinical developmental, and educational sciences. She grew up living around the world as a bilingual, bicultural Puerto Rican, but calls the earth her home. Dr. Narvaez's current research explores how early life experience influences well-being and moral character in children and adults. She has numerous publications, including more than 20 books, such as Indigenous Sustainable Wisdom, First Nation Know-How for Global Flourishing, Basic Needs, Well-Being, and Morality. Her recent book, Neurobiology and the Development of Human Morality, Evolution, Culture, and Wisdom, won national and international awards. She's president of kindredworld.org, blogs for Psychology Today, Moral Landscapes, and hosts the webpage evolvednest.org, also breaking through the cyclefilm.org. So welcome, Darcia. We're so happy to have you back.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here with you again. Thank you, Letitia, Diane, Jen, and everyone involved in making these things happen. It's really, really thrilling. So important, so needed today. I'm going to share my screen so I can show you the PowerPoint I have. So I am trying to, from my various backgrounds, interdisciplinary perspective, trying to knit into the maternal gift economy, understanding that Jen has so intelligently and wisely shared with the world. And I'm still in the works of doing that. I have a bunch written, but it's just not quite there yet. So I thought today what I would focus on is how the kind of framework we have, which is the Evolved Nest, is a way to enhance the life of the child, which is what maternal gifting is all about. And I'm focusing on the importance of humility, which I think is something the world is missing since we've moved into the patriarchal dominance, kind of hierarchical, competitive, detached orientation. So this is the focus I chose today, to have the positive, upbeat kind of thing about what we as maternal nurturers offer to children and to everybody, but throughout our lives. And so that's why I've focused the title here. Maternal gift economies are grounded in partnership humility. And you can see here that the image is two trees, and I see the mother, the mothering, the nurturing that we do as a partnership, a scaffolding of the life and uniqueness of the child that is there to unfold, but needs the right kind of nesting to do that. And I think the maternal gift approach offers the framing that we need to understand how to help children unfold their unique intelligences, their unique spirits, which if we're going to solve humanity's challenges, we need everyone's uniqueness and their gifts to come forward. So let's go on then. So humility, what do I mean by humility here? I'm talking about our social mammalian heritage. We often forget that we're social mammals. Social mammals have certain needs, and I'll talk about those in a moment. We have certain basic needs for all sorts of, a sense of belonging, a sense of competence, a sense of autonomy, many needs that we've been writing about in my lab and my colleagues. And then the humility towards the needs of the child in the moment. And this is something in the States that's often the thwarting of needs of the child, minimizing the needs of the child, right? So we've gone in the wrong direction. And so that creates all sorts of problems, puts the kids on the wrong trajectory towards ill health and dysregulation and disgruntledness, right? And you can see it across the country now. We have a lot of people whose needs were not met and so have difficulty cooperating with others, thinking well, feeling connected and all. And then the other humility here I mentioned is in partnership with the rest of the natural world, something the Western world has moved away from for hundreds of years, longer, but especially in the last few hundred years. And so we have come to the crises now that we face the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the environmental apocalypse. So that's global warming, atmosphere degradation, massive extinction of animals and species, and toxicity in soil, air, water, food in our bodies. So we're there. And so what do we need to do, of course, is get back to our maternal gift economy that guided our species forever. And only we fell off of that wonderful cycle only in the last few millennia. But we've been around for 6 million years, human species, 2 million for our genus. All right, so just to review, what are our basic needs? Well, we have animal needs for nourishment and warmth and protection and safety. These are things that are kind of taken for granted. In the United States, though, that seems to be all that some parents think they have to do for their babies. They forget, or they're told that it doesn't matter. All these other needs, they don't even know about them. They're not talked about. They're not given the support to provide them. And those needs are mammalian needs for affection, lots of touching and caring and holding, play from day one. Babies expect to be connecting and to relate and to, generate routines with particular people, and the sense of inclusion in the life of the community. Our social mammalian needs are for really extensive bonding, deep bonding with several particular people. Our sense of community bonding as well, and a sense of support that we feel like we belong to that community. The community loves us, we're cherished. And then we enjoy being with others, that enjoyment that's our primary focus as social mammals, to be with others and to enhance their lives, to feel enhanced by being together. Those kinds of capacities, of course, have to be fostered. And when you don't have what we call the evolved nest, a lot of this gets underdeveloped. And then we also have human needs. We need intersubjectivity, that sense of mind melding or, connected communication with multiple adults, not just mom, but other nurturers as well, so that we become more flexible and able to shift and tune into a variety of styles of people. We need immersion in a communal life so that we learn from observation how to live, how to be a member of the community, and we feel like we have something to offer. We need apprenticeship in adult activities over time, following role models. mirroring what others do. And this starts from the beginning. As much as that baby can do, let them do it, right? A toddler, even though they're not very good at folding laundry, let them help, because they're building all those skills, and it will they'll just be knitted into the community life as a result. And then we need to make meaning out of our lives. And that comes with development. And if we don't get a good story from our community, if we're left alone and left on our own to find our way without any guidance, we're going to make meaning in a negative way. We feel abandoned, rejected, humiliated. We're going to have a different story that attracts our meaning making than if we feel connected, supported, loved, and that our community has a purpose of living well together. And then we also need to self-expand or self-actualize and have ways to heal our hurts, heal our disrepair, our broken relationships, whatever it is that isn't going well. We need tools, and we need to know how to do that and learn to do that, hopefully in the community. So a lot of what we want to look like are what Indigenous First Nation communities have been doing for thousands, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years, talking about the Sun Bushmen. And they provide for all the evolved nest, which I'm going to talk about. And they provide routine healing practices every week or several times a week, dancing and drumming for letting go of grief, letting go of resentments, and mending community relations. So that's the thing that we also need to provide as a basic need for living well as a human being. So here's our evolved nest. And I'm going to go through each one just looking at one aspect of them. But let me first say that this nest, we call it evolved developmental niche in our academic papers because they like fancy terms, you know. Evolved nest, what? We're not birds. Yeah, right. Niche means nest, right? But that's what's used in academia. It's a wellness-informed set of components to guide optimal normal development, to guide it in early life and to maintain it throughout life. So this is wellness informed. So you've heard of trauma informed. Trauma informed is about knowing what things can cause triggers in people who've been traumatized in the past, and to avoid those things in your business or your classroom, and so that people don't get out of whack from those triggering experiences. But that's not enough to optimize normal development, to flourish, to thrive. We need a wellness-informed understanding of what we need to reach our full potential. And so the nest is set up to do that. It's over 75 million years old, most of the characteristics, because they're part of the social mammal line that evolved. It's one of many characteristics that we inherit beyond genes. So cell plans are not genetically conveyed, body plans, culture, the ecology we inherit, those are things outside of genetic inheritance. So we need a broader understanding of evolution to understand who we are and how to be our best selves. So because these characteristics are mostly over 75 million years old, evolution, we could say, has done the experiments for us, right? They evolved to fixation, that they were working so well that they stayed around for our ancestors because that helped them adapt to new situations. So this is something that builds a flexible, responsive, intelligent brain, and one that can adapt in various ways, and that is going to have a healthy body and a healthy psyche and a healthy sociality, and also morality, more compassionate, open-hearted morality. You can call this our original instructions for raising a human being, and realize that it's provided by a community, provisioned by a community, not just mom, but it's the layers of support that the mother has. And then there's grandmothers, right, who seem to have been fundamental to our adaptation, to our species survival, and our species future. So that's one of the reasons we have postmenopausal women, supposedly. That's always puzzled some scientists. Well, we need those grandmothers to help raise the child because the brain is very, needs a lot of calories. Our big brains, our big social brains, they need a lot of calories, and the mother cannot provide them alone. And so we evolved to have a community, cooperative child raising. Sarah Hurdy's work. Human babies also, we should understand, resemble fetuses until 18 months of age. We had to be born earlier because when we shifted from to walking on two legs, our pelvises shrank and then the baby's head would get too big. So there's a combination of our increasing brain size over our species evolution, and then the need to have the baby emerge before the brain is finished because the mother's pelvis was too narrow, human pelvis. And so 18 months of age, that's when the brain plates start to fuse and other factors in the body start to look more like a newborn of another animal. But until then, and actually after that as well, in the first years of life, the brain is rapidly growing, thousands of synapses a second. And so every experience that child is having is affecting how well or which direction the brain is growing. So it matters what that experience is. And so you want to keep babies calm, meet their needs quickly so that the brain chemistry is positive, growth oriented in the ways that are scheduled to be growing, which is a lot of sociality, how to get along with others and make your way in the world in a cooperative manner. If babies are left to cry, if they're left alone, they're going to have distressed chemistry, so high cortisol levels, which then shifts development, either melts synapses if it goes on for a long time, what's supposed to be growing, so you end up with gaps in your brain, which may not show up till adolescence or adulthood, with suicidality or anxiety, other issues. Or you're misdeveloping it, so you get a bigger amygdala, fear-oriented, more threat reactivity in the brain because you've left the child in such distress that their body adjusts to how their embodied experience is. So if it's distressful, then they're going to develop the tools to always be looking for distress and threat. And they don't grow the stuff that's about cooperation and relational attunement. So our evolved nest, then, we're going to go through each one of these, but I'm going to take a different slant. I'm going to ask, focus on empowering the child. How does the evolved nest, how do these components empower the child? Now, I could talk about health, how it builds good health. Each one are good physical health, psychological health, and what it looks like when they're missing, but I'm going to focus instead on empowering the child. So this is the maternal gift economy at work. So we have soothing pre and perinatal experience. And when you want to empower the child, you're going to have a calm gestational experience. That means socially supported, and that's going to have the right biochemistry for the child. We could also talk about diet and other things, but we want to emphasize that gestational experience really matters now, and there's more and more evidence about it, how genes are turned on or off by what happens in the womb, and for better or for worse. And a child whose gestation is stressful is going to be more irritable as a baby, which makes it harder to mother or nurture them. So then the parents have to be more sensitive to that and adjust. Birth, under normal natural conditions, the child chooses their birthday. They're not forced into some due date and some induction. Babies differ in how long they stay in the womb by about 55 days. So there's no way a doctor can predict how long that baby needs to be in the womb, right? So under normal natural conditions, the baby chooses the birthday, the child crawls to the breast and manipulates the nipple and starts the milk letdown, triggers oxytocin in the mother, and the infant feels welcome by how they are received, not with harsh touch, bright lights, or harsh smells, not with any painful procedures, not with infant circumcision. And so at birth, to empower the child means to prepare a soothing entrance into this world. And the second is breastfeeding on request. In this case, and there's so much to say about how important breast milk is for the body and brain and development in general. And most of the studies you hear about are breastfeeding, 3 months breastfeeding versus 3 months of formula feeding, which is hardly anything because our species evolved to breastfeed for at least 4 years. On average, weaning is 4 years. It's like, oh my God, right? It's such a shock to the modern mindset. But the reason is because breast milk has thousands of ingredients, including how to build all the building blocks for an immune system. And the immune system takes several years to get going. It needs that maternal support. Now, it's not just moms, the mother of that child that can breastfeed. In our ancestral context, other mothers also would breastfeed. And in some societies today, there's some more native communities, they want everyone to breastfeed the child so that they have more strength. They don't know all the stuff about immune systems, but that's what they're doing, is building a very responsive immune system from the mother's antibodies and her experiences, or the breastfeeder's experiences, training up that child's immune system. So in breastfeeding as well, for empowering the child here, this is just like the birth, and the child crawls up and starts the milk flow. Wow, that's self-efficacy, right? And so many of our kids today don't feel competent. They come to school and they have low self-esteem, in part because they haven't had all these normal, natural processes of becoming a human being and growing in a way that gives them lots of autonomy and freedom, but lots of support at the same time. So in breastfeeding on request here, the baby controls the size of each mouthful, unlike a bottle where it's pouring down your throat. The baby regulates how much he or she eats. So instead of the forced amount of formula, for example, and the baby stops when he or she is full, which is what you want, instead of continuing to pour the formula down the throat, which is linked to obesity. Breast milk also changes with the needs of the baby in terms of what gender they have, how fast they're growing at the time, whether there's an infectious agent in the area. Antibodies are then generated by the mother's breasts to protect the child. Positive moving touch is the third evolvedness component that has been identified. And these components have been identified by anthropologists around the world in hunter-gatherer communities. This is what they all provide. And they didn't get together and plan this. It's just that's what evolved for our human species. And so it's done everywhere until civilization kind of pulled the rug out in various ways, more and more. So positive moving touch is one of those things. Skin-to-skin contact especially is important in those early months and even after that. And the feeling that the moving touch provides is the similar feeling to being in the womb. And so it's very comforting to the child. It helps digestion because it helps the cilia in the digestive tract get stimulated so they do their job, helps brain development in different ways, and it's avoiding any kind of negative touch. There's a lot of evidence now that spanking, if you spank your child, it's It's like this has similar effects as a physical and sexual abuse long term. So it's not something that should be done, but half of the parents in the US with 12-month-old babies say they spank them. So already development is misdirected then. What does that do? Again, as I said earlier, it's going to make that brain and that child oriented to self-protection. They'll go into a self-protective mode in order to keep growing, really. They don't feel safe and relaxed to grow as they wish, as they will, as their spirit wants. Nope, they gotta. And so you don't know what kinds of things get seeded there, what kind of dysregulation and misperception and misunderstanding of living is planted. The fourth one is a welcoming social climate. And this is, of course, so important for us throughout life. And we need to have our basic needs accepted and fulfilled, not minimized, not rejected, not, we need to have those fulfilled or we get stressed. And when we get stressed, we get stupid. That's what happens to the brain. The blood flow shifts away from higher order thinking when the stress response kicks in. It mobilizes you for action because we evolved as animals, mammals, who use the stress response to run away from a predator, right? To save ourselves from the falling boulder, whatever that is. But if we're in a social climate that keeps denying our basic needs, we're going to have chronic stress. It's abnormal for an animal species, an animal family, to deny their young what they need. But somehow we've normalized it in the US in particular. In the US, money and work are more important than anything else. And so relationships and meeting basic needs are put aside or minimized as much as possible. You can hear it in the culture of how to care for babies, what so-called experts tell parents. Anyway, so we need our basic needs accepted and fulfilled. An emphasis on this holistic interconnectedness, that we are connected not only to our individual family members, but to the rest of the community and to the other than human community. So this social climate of welcomeness actually in Native communities includes being welcomed by the river, the trees, the animals.
Darcia, you have 5 minutes.
My 5 minutes. Okay. All right. So the baby's body and psyche and spirit then are supported here. Diversity is encouraged. The uniqueness of that child, that they don't have to fit into a particular script. They are welcomed to be themselves, and they experience lots of generosity and sharing from the community, and they practice and are engaged in that way of being and learning it themselves. The fifth one is self-directed social play. This is self-enlivening. It enhances the other, and you learn self-regulation. You learn to move with the flow of life. That's the Chinese call Wu Wei, effortless action, which is the Tao way of being, the best way to be, instead of the planful mind that we think is the normal way, which is Yu Wei. The experiential and collaborative learning then happens through social play, and you learn humor, and it's an essential coping skill. There's some evidence that serial killers did not play as children. Allo parents, other mothers, other parents really are important to help buffer any negative experiences. You can always run to the auntie, the grandma, or the uncle to when something goes wrong. If mother or father's not nearby, you learn again diversity, your ability to get along with lots of different kinds of people, and you're embedded in the community. You feel supported. You build social purpose within the community, and you enhance then community welfare, because that's part of how humans you grow up. Responsive relationships are also vital, where you follow the needs of the child. You build the child's self-trust. It's like, oh, my feelings matter, and they are good communicators, and they mean something, and and others believe me when I express my needs and they fulfill them. Wow. And so you trust yourself, you trust others, you have a sense of mutualism then, of it, mutually interacting, mutually influencing the other. And you build a heart-mindedness then. You're able to let your heart grow instead of in a stressful, non-responsive relationship climate. You're going to shut down your heart. You can't be yourself. You can't grow your spirit, right? So you lock your heart away, and then you move with your gut, your survival, self-protection gut reactions, or you use your schooled mind of deliberative, planful kind of thinking, detached from who you are. But here we have the heart-mindedness, and you experience and practice empathy as a result. Number 8 is nature immersion and connection. This is where you build ecological attachment, not just attachment to people, but to attachment to the natural world. And you build know-how because you're immersed in it, and you run around and you understand and learn about plants and animals. You build your receptive intelligence. You can actually pick up on the cues from the natural world. And your sentience, you understand that everything is alive. That's part of the receptive intelligence that we have kind of denied and suppressed in children, often in civilization. And you build a sense of place. You trust the universe, understand the laws of nature to be primary, and you become more biocentric instead of anthropocentric, focused on humans. You become focused on life generally, and you become less materialistic as a result. And it builds this partnership with nature that I said is critical for sustainable communities, which we can see in small band hunter-gatherers in First Nation communities around the world. And finally, the last is routine healing practices, where a child learns as a baby to repair dyssynchrony, modeling the mother or father. There are opportunities to play out unresolved hurts or fears, so playful interactions are really, imaginative play is really important here. Conflict resolution is viewed as relational mending. So when someone does something harmful, you don't punish them. You find out what happened, why is there a breakdown in the relationship, and how to repair that. That's restorative justice. Nonviolent communication, expressing your needs and in ways that are not accusatory or harmful to the others, and saying what, yeah. And then ceremonies as life-sustaining. So having regular ways of having gratitude ceremonies, other kinds that keep you connected to the natural world and to the community. So there are layers of interactive influence here. So the culture is going to affect your interpersonal relationships, your capacities, and those are affecting your intrapersonal, how well you know yourself, what kind of self-knowledge, emotional intelligence you build, and all that interacts on and on. And humility then happens at every form, right? So the culture needs to be humble towards the natural world, the parents and the adults humble towards the needs of the child, and that builds a person who has a sense of being humble towards their own needs and not, suppressing themselves too. And this goes back and forth in different ways. So this is part of a wellness-informed nested pathway where you meet basic needs, you promote thriving throughout life, and you develop then a heart-minded individual and community, and you have the know-how for a deeply sustainable life. And this is what we see in our sustainable indigenous societies that we have much to learn from. And so I thank you very much. Here's more information. Please watch our film, breakingthecyclefilm.org, for just 6 minutes of a lot of this information packed in with lots of images. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Darcia. I'm sure that we'll have lots of questions when we have open up for questions and answers at the end. It's so important to have this grounded understanding and this child development in a healthy environment. Kathy Jones, our next speaker, is going to tell us really about a mother world. and a political party, but also the work that she does in the world. And what happens when perhaps the mothers might be in charge, and if all the children were not able to grow up in healthy environments, then there are things that Darcia points out, nodal points that we can actually address socially to be able to support those needs for every human and make sure their basic needs are sustained. So Kathy Jones, who I'm so pleased to have, I met Kathy Jones in, I think it was 1999, right as I was entering into being ordained as a Dianic High Priestess 21 years ago. So Kathy was the very first person internationally who brought me out as a goddess woman, and I began to speak about what it means to actually be, priestessing on the edge of chaos. So Kathy, I want to thank you for that. She is, yes.
Letitia, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's true. I generally didn't speak publicly, but that was that was my big coming out. So Kathy Jones is a Motherworld initiator, a priestess of Avalon, a priestess of goddess. She's the priestess initiator and founder, creative director, and temple weaver of Glastonbury Goddess Temple, Goddess Hall, and Goddess House. She's founder of Glastonbury Goddess Conference and Motherworld initiator. She has lived in the Isle of Avalon in Glastonbury for 40 years and loves the sacred land of the goddess. So welcome, Kathy, and I hope that you'll tell us about your new book too.
Okay. Thank you, Letitia. And, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Darcia. That was great to hear what you wrote. I feel to take a step back from where you say, because I believe in everything that you are saying. But in order for me to understand that how we get to that kind of place, there's a focus before then, which is a focus on mothers. So, Motherworld. Motherworld is the society which places Mother Earth, mothers, and the values of mothering and caring, which are love, care, nurture, support for all people and all of her nature, in the center of our lives and communities, rather than leaving them out on the periphery. In the societies we live in this world, all those values are out on the edge. They are not important. They're not viewed as important in patriarchal culture. And Motherworld is a vision whose time has really come again. Because as we all know, what's happening to Mother Earth is catastrophic for the earth, for all of her nature, for us, for everything. So the first step of placing Mother Earth in the center of our concerns and our actions and our focus is a major step which has to occur, which has to happen. Motherworld is grounded in the fact that we all live upon our Mother Earth. She is our great mother, the source and foundation of everything that we are and all that we have. We are her offspring. Our bodies are made from her substance. She is, and her substance is made from stardust. And somewhere in the way that we live, we have forgotten this incredible connection that goes from the substance of our bodies to the substances of the universe. There is no separation, both physically and spiritually. And again, in our societies, we forget about that spiritual basis, which is the basis for everything that we are and everything that we do, that our consciousness and our bodies are completely intermingled. And our societies, patriarchal religions, separate body and spirit, body and soul, separate them out as if they are not connected deeply and directly. So I am speaking to you from Glastonbury, a small town in the southwest of the British Isles, or as we like to call them, Bridget's Isles, far away in the southwest. It's a little town, it's not big, and yet it is a gateway into an energetic and magical world that is the sacred Isle of Avalon, which is the ancient land of Goddess, which still exists, which is present in the energetic fabric of this place and is a source of creation. It is a source of creation in the present. It's a source of emergence and remembrance of ideas, visions, understandings of who Goddess is, who she is as the creator of everything. So, leaping into the fact that she is the creator, she is the mother, the great mother who gives birth to everything. This is where all the ideas and vision of Motherworld come from, of course, mixed together with all the knowledge and learning of other women and other women's ideas, and people like Jen. Jen, in her wonderful education for us of the maternal gift economy. Everything that Jen's life is dedicated to is a demonstration of her inspiring knowledge and belief, and I am very grateful to Jen for all that she has given to us, to me. Yeah, beautiful. And there are others. There's like Heide Abendroth Gertner, also, who all her research for so long about maternal communities, or matriarchal, matrilineal, matricentral, matrifocal communities, all of that. So many of our elder women who have spent their whole lives developing and growing their knowledge and wisdom, which is what has helped to bring together the ideas for Motherworld and how they have developed. So Motherworld is the society in which creative, nurturing, and life-affirming values, actions, insights, and awareness are honored and encouraged in women, men, all genders, all ages, all races, all ethnicities, all abilities. All right. That's what we want. This vision of Motherworld offers a radically different view of the way in which we can live together upon our Mother Earth, one that is both a return to an indigenous understanding of our place upon her Earth, and also one that is forward-thinking, using developments in earth-based spirituality, society, science, technology to support that indigenous awareness and the life forces of Mother Earth. So the vision came, it's now about 10 years ago, it was in 2012, and we had been in the Goddess Conference, which is an international Goddess Conference, which is held here in Glastonbury every year. And in 2012, we had been celebrating the Great Mother, and we had done some big ceremonies with a lot of people, really in gratitude to the Great Mother for all that she gives to us, all that we receive from her. And after the conference, my partner, who is now my husband, Mike, he and I, we went on holiday to Anatolia, the land of the mothers, Turkey. And I was kind of exhausted after the conference because it's a lot of work. So just lying in the sun by the pool, I'm reading a novel by Barbara Walker, which is called Amazon. And in this novel, a woman who lives in an ancient culture takes part in a ceremony and goes into a temple, and through the ceremony she emerges in modern day America. the novel is really about the contrast between modern day America and her life in a matriarchal society where goddess is at the center and the temple is at the center of life and all of that. And as I was reading this, I felt such again, a lot of my realizations, they come from a sadness from what is lost to an urgency to what can be changed, what can be renewed. And part of that was, okay, what kind of society do I want to live in? What kind of society would I like to be a part of? And that's when the whole vision of Motherworld as a spiritual understanding, an understanding in consciousness, as a practical understanding, began to evolve. And over the next few weeks, and then when we came home again, I began to talk with the other people in our community, in our goddess community, about what kind of society we would really like to be a part of, instead of living in a society where we have to put up with the way things are and things, where we have to make excuses for how things are lived, which is how this vision emerged. And I realized within myself that the idea of reversing the way that everything is, because at the moment, in the center of our societies, there is money, greed, profit, war, violence, destruction, all of that. That's in the center of our societies. That's where everything is focused, to that continuing. It's all about people making money from other people's suffering. And that this is so inherently wrong. But that is what has evolved in the last 5,000-6,000 years of patriarchy. And has actually got worse since about the 16th century. So Luciana Perkovic, who is a wonderful Italian goddess-loving scholar, I don't know, she's a wonderful crone friend. And in a talk that she gave, she was talking about that it's really in the 16th century and from the first development of the ideas of science, the values of science, that one of the essential parts of it was the control and destruction of nature, was about controlling nature, and that man could see himself as the only way forward was to be in charge of nature and to subjugate nature to his will, basically. And that that acceleration has occurred, that kind of acceleration has occurred in the last 500 years. And that we are now in this time, we're at such a big pivotal moment for the whole of society and for the earth herself. And what is happening with the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, the global effects of that, it's such an acceleration of our understanding of our ways of being. So here in Britain, with the lockdowns that we have had and things that have occurred, there are several major realizations that are emerging for people in general, that they don't want to go on living in the way that they have been living. Lots of people have moved out of cities. Nobody is actually talking about any of these things, but we get lots of people who travel here down into the countryside. Lots of people want to leave their jobs. Lots of people no longer want to be slaves to the machine. It's just something that is kind of naturally is a response to this, what's happening. And the other thing that's become clear is how much we owe to the people who care for us, who care for us when we're ill, care for us when we're sick, and that those people are very important in our lives, especially when we are ill, sick, disabled. And many of those people are mothers, and many of those people are women, and many of those people, the majority of all these things are women who are underpaid, overworked, undervalued, all of those things. So that it's a really interesting thing. So they had a thing in this country where the people who work for the National Health Service, which is the main support system for health system for most of the people, which in this country is free, that those people were offered, who have been working, great long hours, were offered like a 1% pay rise, which doesn't even cover inflation, so no value given to the people who care. And the people who care, the vast majority are mothers who have understood in their bodies and in their bones what it is to care, what it is to nurture, what it is to support and love, and have brought that knowledge and wisdom from the experiences of giving birth to babies, this miraculous thing that we can do as women. And that's not to say all women, it's not to say there's an onus on all women to do it. It's just, the fact is, everyone is born from a mother. Everyone has a mother. It's the only way you get here is to have a mother. And our inability to honor that and celebrate it is extraordinary. And our reticence, which I found in myself when I talked about it, my reticence about saying, actually, mothers are just the most important people on the planet, because without it, nothing continues, and how mothers are themselves are looked after, cared for, and supported makes all the difference to how the children they give birth to, are then nurtured, cared for, and supported into the future. If we don't look after mothers, then the children are not properly looked after and cared for. Then the problems start, and the cycle just continues. The cycle of harm continues. If you don't look after the mothers, you can't look after the children properly, and therefore everything just repeats, goes round in this thing. One of the interesting things, so we have spent a lot of time talking about what that kind of a society might look like, for ourselves and for others. But one of the interesting things was, as soon as we began to talk about the ideas around Motherworld, immediately many of the people within the group started to say, well, you are not taking care of me. So it wasn't, everybody was like, well, I'm not being nurtured. These things are your fault because you're not nurturing me. So instead of wanting to nurture mothers, everyone was asking to be nurtured because they hadn't been properly nurtured themselves. So the first big wound was up there. And because we are part of a goddess temple community, it was like the goddess temple is not taking care of me. Instead of, how can I take care of others? How can I support everything that we're trying to do? It's, I am not being supported. It's all your fault. So there's a lot of, just in proposing an idea, there's then a lot of consequences to that, and a lot of things that need to be worked on and sorted out and dealt with, and all of that. In our conversations we talked about how we would apply the Motherworld vision to our own community, which is quite a diverse community, which is Glastonbury is a place of transformation. The Isle of Avalon is a place of transformation. The Lady of Avalon, who is goddess in this sacred land, is a goddess of love and transformation. So when people come here, they enter into an energetic of transformation, which is where their wounding emerges. Healing needs to take place and transformation hopefully occurs. But it means that a lot of people are always in process. They're in this transformational process when they live here, or when they come and visit here, or when they come and do courses with us. It's all about this transformational process. So the stability of the center of the community is always being challenged, and the community is always changing and evolving. So it's like how do we hold the whole to allow everything to change as we are going along, and so it's complex, right? But we began to look at ultimately what is it that we want to include, and it was like, well, how do we include mothers in our events, in our ceremonies, how do we provide more for the mothers who are part of the community to start off with? So that was a kind of, so we do things like we have mothers healing, we have mothers circles. We began to provide kind of childcare, so mothers could come to some of the events, that kind of thing. And ultimately, what our understanding is, it's like a great change in the way that we understand what is happening when you incarnate into this world. That care needs to be taken before conception, through the time the child is in the mother's womb, care of the mother, care of the child, the whole experience of birth. Then there's the growing and the living and the life and the maturing and the harvesting and the aging and the dying and the after death. That life is that the vision that we have of a mother world is something that is encompassing of the fact that we are souls incarnate into a physical world. We are energetics. We are consciousness incarnate into a physical world. And this, it depends what you believe in, but this is kind of our belief system, that we are souls who are coming to spend some time upon this earth for experiences, to do what we do, and evolving, and then aging and dying and taking the wisdom and moving on through the death process and beyond that time. So in indigenous communities, as we all know, there are rites of passage, ceremonies that mark specific times in a life cycle. And part of a Motherworld community is about honoring those particular places in the life cycle that are important, that mark transitions. So there are major ceremonies, and there are minor ones. And we spent a lot of time talking about what kind of rites of passage we would like to work with. And for the major ones, it was that they include an experience of life and death, the principal ones. So birth is a rite of passage for both child and mother. Both meet the gateway of life and death. And then actually giving birth, birthing, both for baby and for child, is a rite of passage. It's a place where you meet that point of danger, and you meet the extraordinary forces of her nature, because you can live and you can die. and also at the other end is death. That is the final gateway, is the one where you meet that. And most male rites of passage are attempts to mimic giving birth, you know, so or being born. It's like that. But we actually have it as a natural experience that is the most extraordinary experience. So it's kind of, you know, so, and of course there are many other rites of passage. There are, you know, for a child, there's around 7 years old, there's the first steps away. There are puberty, all those ones for girls and for boys. Yeah, marriage, divorce, all the day, you know, all croning, saging, menopause, yeah, all the blood rites, all the blood mysteries. So all of that is a part of a Motherworld community, to create that for the whole community, for those who want to participate. So, and ultimately, this would be a part of a Motherworld experience, would be to be a part of that. But much of the work that has been done about matriarchal societies of the past, and those also of the present, does not take into account where we are now, living in a technological world with the things that we have going on, and so in all of this, it's like, how do the fundamental ideas and understanding, how do they develop for the present day? How they develop now? How they express now? Because we aren't living 1,000 years ago. We're not living 6,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago when everybody lived like this. So what is it? What are the things? What are the values and the things that we need to do now to create the kind of world that we would like to live in now? Well, I would like to live in. It's like, I want to live in this kind of world. And of course, all part of that is taking care of the earth, taking care of the fire, the water, the air, you know, everything needs to be cleaned up. We have to clean up our act. We have to change the way that we get our electricity, that we power everything, that all of that has to change. We have, you know, remove the pollution, all that, or everything that is so obvious that we have to do it. We just got to do it, you know. And all of that is part of that understanding, that honoring of Mother Earth, and the honoring of mothers in the center, the gifts of mothering, which we all receive as a baby, and which we give as mothers. And that's, I'm not sure if that's my half hour, but yes. So I have a new book which is coming out next week, which is a small book, but is about the vision of Motherworld. I don't yet have a copy. There's a kind of little glitch on the printing front, but I'm working on that. So there's an online launch next Wednesday evening, and there's an in-person launch on the Friday next week. Yeah, Motherworld, vision whose time has come. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I look forward to your book, and it's very, very exciting. And I'm wondering, I'm giving you not very much time to think about it, but you have till the end of our session. But I'm wondering if you would close us out by giving us just, if I leave you with a few minutes, to give us a little meditation moment so that we can visualize the mother world with you in a deep way. And then we'll come back out and I'll just close the session and we'll prepare to leave the session. But this way you'll at least know those of us on this session will be holding that space with you and with Darcia of No Violence for the Children and putting the mothers at the center. And Kathy, I wanted to just point out one thing. Both you, Kathy and Darcia, in our salon, I think Darcia might have been there, I'm not sure, but Salon 20, when Ibu Robin, who is a midwife, and she's quite active in the world, presented a notion of the golden chain of mothers and around a birthing mother. And that session in particular was beautiful. Elena Skoko, who is also with us today and part of our tech support, also presented about singing birth. So if you haven't seen that, I want to invite you to take a look at that, because I agree, Kathy, that we need to put the mothers at the center to ensure that what Darcia is saying can actually be enfolded out into the world. So thank you both for that. And it was a beautiful pairing. So Jen, I wonder if you have anything that you'd like to say and offer at this moment before we open up for questions.
Sure. I was just thinking so much about the maternal paradigm, or the maternal gift paradigm, which sees the world in terms of giving and receiving. And our philosophy has looked at everything in terms of objective exchange. So giving only in order to get, and an equivalence between things, which means they're separated. If they're equated, they're separated. Instead, the giving and receiving unites people, and the mother and the child unite. And I really think that all of our reasoning is based on giving and receiving. And it's our operating system, that we have, the way our minds work in that way, and not the exchange way. We have things that we give, and then that give forward, and that gives forward to something else. So the whole let's say the whole mother world, the whole earth, the population of the earth, animal and vegetable and human and so on, is engaged in giving and receiving, and breathing in and breathing out. And the sun is shining, and the plants receive the light and make something that then other animals can receive, and so on. So this is a way of looking at the world that is alien to the market, and the market exploits it. So we need to disbelieve the market way, stop thinking in those terms, and lift up the way of giving and receiving. So that's just what I think is be both fine for the mothers and children, and the communities and children, which validates what's going on there. And the same thing with the mother world, in that the mothers are giving, and the world is receiving, and the Mother Earth is giving, and people are receiving, and they give on again and again and again, instead of having to stop and say, I'm not going to satisfy your need, because I'm going to wait till you give me something for my need.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, the earth gives us all the metals. So they're going to go, okay, the metals, they belong to me now. So you're going to have to pay to get them. But they don't honor the fact they were just there in the earth.
They were a gift.
Yeah.
We interpret them as a gift. We are able to receive them as a gift.
And then it's a gift that I can own and hold on to, and yes, all of that.
But you have to give it forward.
Yeah, just keep giving it on. Yeah.
I think we undermine that kind of innate giving and receiving, orientation when mothers are not supported, and then they cannot provide the nest to their children, or the extended family or the community can't. And so that child then realizes things are scarce, right? They're denied so many things, then they start to grasp, because that's the only way they're getting. They have to scream to get their needs met, or whatever it is, because of the layers of undercare. And then that's in their subconscious. They carry it forward, and boys especially are affected by undercare because they mature more slowly. They have less built-in resilience in all sorts of systems. And so then they're the ones who go into the dominance orientation more easily, and they can't get out, right? Unless they have some significant later healing experiences. And patriarchy, civilization has pushed us in that direction on purpose, because you can control all these people who are undercared for, because they don't feel safe. And here, this will save you, buy this, whatever it is.
Yeah. Or obey, and I will give you this.
Right.
Or you can survive if you obey.
Right.
And then I will use my weapons of war to keep you obeying,
Yep.
I mean, I think the whole thing of, the wars, like that the wars are created by the arms industry so that they can sell more arms to
Yeah.
keep the whole thing going, so
Very
they can
sad.
earn more money. All of that is just so disgusting, unbelievably disgusting.
Yes. We just had Jody Evans on in Salon number 21, right before you. And she talked about that, the war economy. And of course, she's promoting the peace economy, but she did tell us in that session that it was Jen's talk that gave her this huge aha, and that she needed to be able to find the language so that the activists that she worked with that were directly eliminating war to create peace, where the safety that Darcia talks about would be available to all humans on the planet. And she actively is pursuing that. And if I think about it before we get off, I'll put the link up. But she has 21 days for to divest from the war economy, which would enter us into the Motherworld peace economy, but the maternal gift economy. That's our word for it, but for her word, she would call it the peace economy, and it would be the Motherworld economy. So it's very exciting.
I think all these things are parallel. They're all complementary and parallel. Different needs in different places on different focus of everything. Yeah, it's great.
Because what's wrong is becoming very clear. What our government, our market, and the whole capitalist 1% of billionaires, I mean, it's all wrong. We have to really start over, start over from the mother.
One of the things that I looked at in this new book was that go to this kind of simplest thing in our society is like housing, mothers and housing. So housing is not set up to support mothers, and in these societies, it's like separate mothers from other mothers, separate them so women are left in their homes on their own with their small children going mad because they've got no support, that. And there's a great, well, in this country, it's like people going into smaller and smaller units, more and more isolated units. Whereas as humans, we're social beings. We need community. We need, we are happiest when we are part of a community, wherever that is. We're happiest and we're healthier when we're part of a supportive community. So how do you start to change housing? How does the housing get changed so that we live in more communal housing where people have spaces, but they're centered around maybe communal kitchens and gardens and social spaces, all of that. And it hasn't even begun.
We have to change the values. It's the values that need to be changed. And we have to be able to find ways of doing that.
Well, let me just check in with Liliana and see if there are any questions or comments that she'd like to share.
Yeah, there's a question for Kathy. How does your community deal with women who are not or do not wish to be biological mothers?
So I don't think we have to deal with them. For me, it's absolutely a choice. It's every single woman's choice to be a mother or not be a mother, to be pregnant or not be pregnant. You know, I'm a feminist. I'm a second wave feminist. Women's right to choose completely, and of course there are women who don't want to have children, and there are women who would like to have children and can't have children. A friend in Iceland who is Uni, she's called Unir, she has just developed this idea of pearl mothers, who are mothers who are the mothers who don't have children. And it's such a nice, because she is someone who wants to have children, but she can't have children, physically can't have children. So she is doing work with the pearl mothers. And I think that is, that every I don't want to say that mothers of ideas, I don't want to actually distract in that way. There's a thing that we have to include everybody to make it all right. And that it's a difference of focus, which is that giving birth, being a physical mother, is such a huge and important thing. That's a statement. And if you don't want to be a mother, you can birth in many other ways, but that is not to detract from the mothers of children. Right? So they're different. They're just different. They're different life journeys. Yeah.
And neither is less valuable.
No, that's
right. That I think that's the most important thing. Jen talks about values, and that we need to recognize that it is a choice that people have. Jen has her hand up. Yes, Jen.
Okay. Well, it's a question of the paradigm. It's how we think about it, you know, and seeing mothering as a basic paradigm for humanity, all of humanity. Everybody has a mother or they die. And so they learn to be nurtured unilaterally, and that allows them to reflect that and nurture unilaterally themselves, other people. And I think all of our intelligence is based on that. And even language. I've written a book, 500-page book about language as gifting. So we usually in our in academia, we've wiped that possibility out. Nobody ever thinks of mothering or gifting as having anything to do with language and with most of the other things in the world. So we need to restore that. That's one way in, let's say, towards changing values.
I think that, speaking of language, when you're dominantly an English speaker and you're not around other languages and people who are native speakers, you don't understand or may not know that they have other words in their language that identifies a person who's considered another mother. Mm-hmm. The brother is a mother, the mother's brother would have a specific title or name because he is not a nurturer, but he is somebody who is a motherer, which is why I like the term that Jen uses as a motherer. Mm-hmm. And that the alloparenting that Darcia talks about in the birthing communities, they talk about it in terms of allo mothering. Mm-hmm. And Ibu Robin was sharing in her house, she still is multi-generational in her house. So the grandmother, the mother, and the great-grandmother are all within the same building, allowing for this ability to have this freedom for sharing the responsibility of the mothering. And mothering is, since I was introduced to Jen's work, mothering, I use mothering as the reference for what it means to raise a human, instead of child rearing or child caring, it's mothering. And that the needs for human, the child has needs and the mother has needs in the event of that child, what we would call child rearing. The mother has needs and the child has needs. And those two things need to have a nice flow from the community, from the child and the mother. So the mothers cannot mother alone. It's almost criminal to require a mother to mother alone.
Yeah.
It's
Which
like
is-
torture.
which is what is required in our society.
Yeah.
It's like that. And, looking at the number of single parents of children, which in our country is, there are at least 2.5 million single parents. The vast majority are women who are struggling on their own, without support, and the society does not support them. There's also this awful thing that is in Scotland, they have just done, is they are kind of saying, we're not going to use the word mother anymore. We're going to use parenting to make it neutral and safe for whoever, whatever. To take, again, it's like, female erasure. It's like erasing women, erasing mothers. Well, we'll call it parenting. Well, actually, no, let's call it mothering. Let's call it what it is. And of course, fathers have a role, men have a role, absolutely. But let's just give the honor to the mothers. What's so desperately wrong with doing that?
Absolutely. Let me check in with Judith and see. Judith, do you have a question or a comment that you'd like to share with me?
This is also a question for Kathy. You said that your group did a lot of discussing, talking about members who felt that they were not being nurtured and that they felt the group should be nurturing them more. And I'm just wondering if you could talk more about how you handled that.
Well, I think, how do we handle it? So I think the first thing really is awareness that because we're a kind of fluid community, that there aren't, in some ways, there aren't enough people to take care of all the people who want to be taken care of. So, so it's like because we're also a goddess temple and we're doing a lot of things, and we have big responsibilities for different buildings, different activities, different organizations, and it's like, okay, so how do we look after the people? How do we look after our people? And it was that kind of realization, actually, in the discussions. It was like, okay, we know what we want to do in the world, because the primary thing that the temple was set up for was to bring Goddess alive in the world again, so that people start to honor her and learn about her, learn that she exists, learn who she is. And that was one of the primary things that set the Goddess temple up. So our focus was, for a long time, was really about how do we communicate that out into the world. And I'd say we had neglected to think about our own community, because we were so focused on the outwards, on the putting out, on the gifting outwards to everybody else, that we weren't thinking so much about our own needs. So then we start to think about our own needs and what we want to create for ourselves. And we have many skillful people, I'd say. We have many people who are skillful in emotional expression, emotional healing of all kinds. So, you know, a lot. It's something about recognizing the problem, and then we can talk about it, and then we can do something about it, and then we can help people. But many people, because they're in their wounding, they can't see what's going on. They don't know how to deal with it. You can help people to the degree that they want to be helped, and then beyond that, you can't. You know, if they don't want the help that is offered, you can't force people to be helped. We're not big enough, or not big enough, and we're not controlling enough, if at all, to do that. So we're really just doing the best we can do. So we're not set up to be some perfect organization. We are doing the best we can do. But we do ask everyone to become more conscious of their projections and what is actually going on, so that when they are complaining to us, that they know that the complaint is coming from them, and their lack of their need, and their lack of mothering, and their lack of their own self-responsibility, and how can we help them to get what they want without it's all going to come from, you know, 3 people or the 5 people they focused on, or whatever it is. Yeah, so
Thanks,
we're a work
Kathy.
in progress.
Thanks, Kathy. I think Darcia might have some resources to offer in her website about the adult who has not had an evolved nest that needs support. Can you just share a little bit about what you might reference from your website, besides this wonderful, and I agree, this film is really beautifully done. So thank you for that, Darcia.
Yeah, we have a number of essays, blog posts on the primal wound. Most of us have primal wounds from the undercare at whatever, you know, we feel like something was missing. Even if we were in a nurturing household, usually there is something that we get bothered by or triggered by. And so there's always something to heal. And that's why it's helpful to have routine healing practices that you practice, your family practices, your community practices. And so there are a number of ideas there. Most of us have to learn to self-calm, and there's various ways to do that. We have 28 days of self-calming. So one idea per day that you try for 28 days and see what works for you. Do it throughout the day. And belly breathing is one of the big ones I teach my students. And that calms your sympathetic system and activates your parasympathetic system, your vagus nerve, which is linked to all sorts of health outcomes when it's well tuned up. So yeah, there's a number of things. The self-calming then is when you notice when you're getting afraid or when you're getting mad, that your jaw is getting tight or something, and then you learn to recognize those symptoms or those signals, and then you turn on the self-calming, and then eventually you don't have those reactions. You're able to move through life calmly, not with triggers all the time. We also recommend social joy to learning. So learning to play as an adult, really important because it grows the right brain, which is linked to your empathy, your ability to get along with others, your sense of higher consciousness and transcendence, your self-controls of various kind. And so those are things that we recommend there for adults who are in need of healing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Darcia. I know that there are plenty of things, and each case is unique. And Kathy, kudos to you, because I stood at the center of a community, and it is quite the challenge, and not for the faint of heart, for sure. So I want to check in with Liliana and see if you have a question for the group.
Yes, I do. I have a comment that I think is important from Angela Dolmage. And she says, housing is very important. That is why you should have housing states with communal gardens and open doors. That was the comment. Then I have a question from Rebecca Gentian. I would love to hear from everyone in patriarchal societies that perpetuate themselves by keeping the focus and all the value on the market. How do we shift the focus and bring into view all of the values beyond the market? Thank you.
Ooh, who wants to take a stab at that?
Well,
Um,
I could take a stab at that.
Yes, go, Kathy.
I think it's where as individuals we focus our attention. So I have zero attention on the market. I barely know what it is, right? So it's just
Me
not
too.
where you put your attention. So if it's the 100 monkey, the more of us that don't focus on it and have focused on other things that are more interesting, that it will switch one day. It will switch, and COVID is really an example of what is making that switch, actually, because it's the first time that people have had time off work at home with their families, sitting, getting bored, thinking, what do I want to do with my life? They got off the machine. They got off the industrial military machine and start to think, what do I want? It's not this. And it is an extraordinary consequence of what is going on that this has happened. So it's like the more people who think about that and who start to change their lives, that's what changes everything. That it's a I don't think you can think your way out. We can't think our way out of this. You can't legislate it. There's a certain degree of trust in the magical process that is occurring, the magical astrological consciousness thing that is actually going on at the present time. You have to trust in that she, goddess, she is taking us to another place.
Thank you, Kathy. That's beautiful. I want to just share, just affirming what Kathy is saying. I've read 2 articles recently that are saying that because since COVID and now the opening up potentially of the economy again in many places, in the United States in particular, they have more people not returning to physical office space and physical jobs. So Kathy, it's true.
Nothing.
And yeah, it's definitely happening in a very subtle way, not being tracked yet, but that little particular point has been.
We get it here because Glastonbury is a spiritual place that people come to looking for something else. That's why people come. And all the way through, and also because people haven't been able to travel abroad, which people used to do, there are thousands of people coming here, despite restrictions. They're coming looking for a different way of being. And we see that in the temple every day. People are just pouring in, looking for something. They're looking. And that's never happened before in the numbers it's happening right now.
That's great. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Darcia or Jen, do you have either one of you want to?
I was just going to say there are a lot of people who are afraid in the United States. And when you're afraid, it can lead you into directions that are good or not so good, right? Not so helpful. So I think getting through the fear is something, and the fear of pain, I think, since, if we suffered as a young child, it's in our body remembers the trauma and the pain, and we don't want to go back there. We have some resistance to it. So I think we need ways to help people not be so afraid of feeling the pain, because once you feel the pain, it's actually quite liberating. It wasn't so bad, people go to therapy for this and they try to avoid, that. But once they get through it, man, it's like you have a whole new life. It's like being reborn. And so to have a experiences, maybe modeling that, or reassuring people that you can pass through this. So all these layers of kind of like Velcro all over you, primal wounds, you pull them off, and it's painful at the moment, at that time. But then once you have them off, wow, you can be yourself. You can find your spirit again. You can unlock your heart. And so we need ways to help people do that. There are mushrooms, psilocybin and things like that, can do it instantaneously. But then the support system has to be there, or else people go back to the way they were after some weeks. So anyway, there's hopefully somebody out there is going to come up with a great way to help people get through the fear.
Thanks, Darcia. Jen, would you like to speak to that?
About how to get rid of the fear, you think?
Oh, no, the original question was the market, if you can remember that far back.
Well, I think we have to learn to discredit the market, to see that it is a not human thing to be doing. We put all of our trust in the market and nothing in the mother. And there are two opposing systems, two opposing ways of being. And we're nurturing the market. The market is ripping off everybody. We're giving it all our free gifts. And we have to learn to discredit the market. There are ways. I mean, it's obviously harming all of us. And we have to also introduce this into the academic world. I read something the other day that said that when Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex, he wanted to say military-industrial academic complex, but somebody got him to leave that word out. And in fact, there's so much in the paradigm that is, patriarchal for sure, for so many centuries, and market thinking. And now it's getting worse and worse. They're selling everything. The whole advertising thing is terrible. And also, that it's justified. I just went to a semiotics conference where they talk about, how to do better marketing and use language for that. My whole idea about language as gifting is totally in opposition to that approach. Anyway, we need to discredit, we need to not believe in the market anymore. The market is harmful. Money is harmful. It's doing a trip on our heads every time we do it, every time we exchange.
I could add to this. So the Native Americans call this cannibalism of life that we see capitalism doing. They have a term for that long ago, Wetico or Wendigo. This is where it's like a psychic virus takes over your mind, and all you want to do is consume. You can see the conquistadores were that way. They just come and then wreck the place and move on, and extract. So we've got that virus kind of going around and being quite rooted now, and so we have to help people get back, to tune back into their spiritual aspects of the world, and not this materialistic orientation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a kind of experience with so I have a younger friend and who's very gifted, right? And I can see right now that that kind of where she is kind of going, she's instead of staying with the gift and actually just expressing the gift and allowing life to respond to her gift. She's done a marketing course, which then means she must sell her gift.
Mhm.
And then ultimately you lose the gift. That's the kind of con of that kind of path. If you go down that path, she'll lose it. So it's like how my dilemma is how to explain this in a way to a younger person who is emerging into the world. It's like who is and all of the world is saying you must do it this way. This is the way you do it because this is the way you will make money, and you want to make money, and you want to be da, 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 da. And I can see the threads of that drawing her in that direction, in a way that is kind of oh, and how to explain or have the conversation really. That's not a road to take. Yeah,
Right.
dilemmas.
We have a lot of parents at Notre Dame who want their students to get a business degree so
Yeah.
that they can make money.
Yeah.
And so many of the students have a business major and have a second major of what they love, art, history, whatever it is. But they're guided by their parents. And so the culture has generational issues.
Yeah. And it feels like that.
Okay, let's just check in with Judith and see if we have one more question. Judith, would you like to?
There's a question from in the chat from Mitten Denise, who, and I see that Darcia has started to answer it also in the chat, but for the people that can't read that fast, she says that she used Darcia's work research on her for her dissertation, and then she found later work about children, and she asks, what is your bridge to the more focus on children?
Yeah, I got my graduate degree in moral development, focusing in on mostly reasoning and what people remember from what they hear, what based on their development. And then I worked in the schools with teachers on moral character development, but those doors started closing. And I stumbled into anthropology, the hunter-gatherer childhoods, the neurobiology, Alan Shore, Jakob Panksepp, and realized that morality isn't about thinking up here in your head. It's neurobiological. It's all the way down. It's how your system reacts to situations, what mindsets attract you. And so that's how it mattered then. It matters how you are raised for your neurobiological structures to be optimally oriented to cooperation and compassion, or they're going to be undermined and be more in that self-protective, dominant, submission orientation. So I just kind of found my way that way, how the spirit guides us. So.
Thanks, Darcia. I think it's important that we're seeing these two threads, the children, how we raise the children, but you have to have raised a good mother. These things are not separate. And so they need to be mutually supported. It's not as if we can fix the mothers before we fix the children. We have to support simultaneously, but it's the adults that can actually make a choice or not make a choice to become well, which is what Kathy was talking about in her attention and her attraction. But Darcia's saying that even as adults, as we get well, we need to ensure that we support the culture transforming, which is what Kathy is saying, and which is what Genevieve is saying. We must support a healthy culture. And these three women represent these different doorways or gateways that in their area of specialty and how they mentor people, women specifically, but all people, that we're able to support a much larger scalable movement, and that is our hope here at our salon. So I just want to thank the three of you for doing this incredible work. And I look forward to a time when we can all be together and just have this massive dialogue. I vision in my head us shouting across the room, but you said, and no, what I meant was, but we can't do that. We have to be actually quite civil here on the screen. So I'm really looking forward to that energetic moment. And we're getting fast and furious comments and questions that are coming in. I want to be able to definitely leave enough time for Kathy to give us a vision of her mother world before we leave. So maybe Liliana, if there's one thing that you'd like to see, another question.
Yeah, I have one question for Darcia. The question is, tell us more about how this regulation manifests. What is the best way to react to it as a parent, as another family member or friend, or as a stranger?
Well, dysregulation can happen in social situations where the person just gets very rigid, or they come to a social situation with a script and they expect you to either be submissive perhaps or dominant, and they don't show this flexible attunement in the moment, this interpersonal dance. People get angry and start yelling. That's dysregulation. Or they withdraw and just don't speak up. They just hide away themselves. And these in a young child, it's going to be extreme emotion, perhaps. And so when you have a baby, you want to keep the baby calm, because then the system is learning to be calm as the parameters of how they exhibit their interests, their desires and needs. If you leave a baby to cry, they learn that they have to scream to get their needs met, and then they have that wider parameters, and they will use that later on, right? But little kids still need a lot of help controlling emotions. It takes them several years to build the skills of that. So just doing distraction things for a young child. So the Inuit will take the child outside, and say, look at the stars, or whatever it is, or play, spin them around, and that shifts them out of that mindset. So they're not practicing that distress set. Now for adults, distraction works too, humor, but it depends. I mean, they can be insulted if you're not paying attention to their needs or their, feelings. So it's kind of complicated to, make any general recommendations. But if we all pay attention to what mindset we're in every situation, what we want is to be open and flexible. But if I start to feel, tense in a situation, I can start to recognize, oh, that person reminds me of my abusive uncle, and that's what's going on here, or whatever it is. It's a lot of self-discovery of those things that have not been supportive in the past, that reverberate and take away your free will, actually, because if you're conditioned by your past, if you were traumatized in any way, you move into that state and you don't have a choice. So to recognize that a lot of kids come to classrooms now with those primal wounds, and teachers have to use, I write about this, use techniques of self-calming, as I said, building social joy and trust. We use folk song games, my students and I, and then we teach them to the undergraduate, and then we teach them to kindergartners. And then, everyone's running around playing, hunting we go, whatever it is. And you're in the moment, you're growing your right hemisphere, you're developing a sense of attunement to others, and it's just a lot of joy. And we want to spend our time, our lives in joy.
Thank you, Darcia. That's fabulous. I wonder if Jen, Kathy, and Darcia, you have any closing words that you'd like to share with us before Kathy gives us a bit of a visualization of a mother world that we can hold before I say our last words and close this out. So Jen, do you have anything you'd like to share right now in closing?
Oh, I just want to thank both of you, Kathy and Darcia. Your work is so important. And as we spread these analyses and these initiatives, we're going to link together, you know, like those nerve things inside the caterpillar where the butterfly comes from. And it's necessary. Our work is necessary. And I really believe it's the way out to solve these problems that capitalist patriarchy has created. And I don't think men are happy in capitalist patriarchy either. So we don't want to destroy the earth. We want to nurture the earth and be nurtured by her and by each other. And it really is, we didn't realize that we are really a mothering species, a particularly mothering species, because we do it with language as well as physically. And we are a species, that's what I call homo donans, a giving species. And we've transformed ourselves into something completely different without realizing it. And now we're paying the price, or the environment is paying the price, and humanity. So blessings on both of you.
Thank you, Jen. Darcia, are there some closing words you'd like to offer?
Yes, just building on Jen's work. I've been talking about the neurobiology, the bottom-up nature of our human nature, of our personality, of our capacities. There's also the top-down aspect, which is the stories we tell each other, right? What's the narrative that we take for granted, or what's the one that we hear over and over and then we take it for granted? And this maternal gift economy is a new story. The Motherworld is the story we need. I mean, these are old stories, really, but they seem new, and we need to tell those stories over and over and over, so that people actually think, oh, that is the story, right? Instead of this craziness we're in now. Thanks.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you so much, Darcia. And Kathy, if you would just take us into this place, and if you want to offer some words either at the beginning or the end of this little vision that you're going to share with us, so that we can feel unified in this mother world.
So I just want to thank you and thank Jen for inviting me to be a part of this. I think it's wonderful, and it's, to me, it is the example of, it's just, we need more and more communication between us all that grows bigger and bigger till, you know, we encompass the world with our values and our ideas, and they become the norm. My analogy is, you know, to use something like learning to use Zoom, which we all had to do suddenly last year. And my strategy was, well, people seem to be able to do it, so it can't be that hard to learn. If other people could do it, I must be able to do it, you see. So that's my kind of strategy for these things. It can't be that hard. We just have to, there are lots of people out there who want what we know and understand. That's what I absolutely know. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Letitia, so much for your wonderful introductions. Thank you, Darcia, for all the work you're doing. It's fabulous. And thank you again, Jen, for everything. Always. Yeah.
And thank you, Kathy, for your wonderful work. So, and Darcia and Letitia. So there.
And everyone who's helped make it happen. Diane, Liliana. Yeah. So maybe just closing your eyes for a few moments and feeling the floor beneath you, the ground, the floor, where you are, wherever you are, and the threads that connect us stretching across the planet right now. From thousands of miles we are connected, thousands of miles of land and sea. And wherever you are, going to walk in your imagination, walking to the door, to the outside where you are. The door is closed at the moment, but walking towards the door to your home or your office or the building you're in, and seeing the door in front of you. And then in a couple of moments, when you open the door, you're going to be opening the door to a vision of Motherworld and what that will look like, what Motherworld looks like when nature is cared for, when the people are cared for, when the world is cared for. So just giving yourself permission to open the door and to just walk out from wherever you are into Motherworld and seeing what it looks like when her nature is taken care of. Are there still the streets, the towns, the houses? Does it still look like that, or does it look like something different? Are there more trees, more flowers, more plants? Are there more animals? Are there more birds? Walking out into Motherworld, what is there that is a completely different view of the life that you lead now? What are the things that are important in the landscape where you are? Can you see the people? Can you see the children? Do you meet your friends and companions? What are the holy places, the sacred places? What do you understand to be your place in her world? Feeling the threads that connect you to other people in the communities to which you belong. And taking the feelings and values and understandings you have into your own heart. And letting yourself be nurtured by her love for you, her never-ending and continuous love for you, the great mother of us all, she who stands at the end of the mother line that reaches through time to you. And as you bring everything into your heart, taking one last look around for this brief glimpse of Motherworld and its beauty, coming back to the door, to the building you're in, coming through the door, closing the door behind you, and returning to your seat or where you're sitting, and just allowing yourself to feel that place inside you that is filled with love and hope and joy. And blessed be.
Blessed be.
To be. Thank you so much, Kathy. And for each of you who are here today, thank you. And I hope that you have this vision of your portal into the mother world, that we can meet again in the future. I'd like to really thank Kathy and Darcia for being with us. It has been absolutely exquisite. And Genevieve, always, to make an interesting conversation, to open us up and connect us all. Liliana and Judith for allowing us to not have to worry about the chat and the Q&A, that you will make sure that that gets to us. And for those of you whose comments were there that we didn't read aloud, or your questions, we will make sure that our speakers will have a copy of it so that they can actually read what you had to share. And they'll also have names and addresses in the event that you speak to them directly. The tech support, Diane and Elena, thank you always. You know, the safety that we feel that Darcia talks about by you holding this space that we don't have to worry about, it is really critical that you're there. Please join us in 2 weeks, November the 6th, for Salon number 23 on immigration issues that we'll be talking about. Jennifer Long from Austin, Texas is going to be talking about the issues that are happening in the United States. And we have Cecilia Cavallo from Italy, who's going to be talking about what's happening in this migration, this deficit of the mother world, where people are having to leave their homes, where they're not being able to be supported, and how we can actually help support those efforts and their safety. So we want to say thank you. The recording for today's salon will be posted on our website. You'll be able to register and see the video at the maternalgifteconomymovement.org. We welcome your questions and comments. And if we didn't get to your comment or question and you really feel it's essential, please do write us at maternalgifteconomy@gmail.com, and we'll make sure that your need is met. How's that? So we will see you in 2 weeks. For those of you who celebrate the holy day of Hallows or Samhain, have a gentle turn of the wheel into the dark. Please be well, stay safe, be kind to one another, and as Darcia says, learn to play and have fun. So be scary and be safe. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Letitia.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.